right, joining us now, Dr. Tammy Wilson from the Flint Veterinary Clinic. Of course, you know, a very divisive topic this go around. We're talking about the declawing cats. You know, I was just telling you about this moments ago before we got started was growing up, I grew up in the country in Brownsboro. My mom, my whole life, we've had animals, we've had cats, dogs, you name it. She always told me we don't declaw. Because that takes away their fighting ability. But I also grew up in the country. So I'm so curious to kind of pick your brain about this as someone who works in animal health. What do you see when someone is like, I'm for this, I'm against this? Where are you at?
So I've seen a lot of different perspectives over the years. I've been out 24 years now and spent time in clinics for about 10 years before that. And I've worked in rural areas and I worked in more populated areas. So a little bit of a difference there as far as clinic perspectives. I think owners' interest is higher maybe in more densely populated areas. And I've heard lots of different reasons as far as what their thoughts are about it and reasoning for it. Everything from the new kitten is scratching the couch. We're moving into a new house and they have restrictions. We don't want the cat to scratch the new baby. We don't want the cat to scratch grandma. The cat is scratching the other cat. You know, those kind of reasons. So I guess the perspective might be from a safety standpoint. I have had other owners think it will make the cat more docile. You've got a rambunctious kitten that's running and playing and running to scratch things, and they think it will calm the kitten down, which is the opposite usually. I've had people think it's more sanitary because they get in the litter box, and if they don't have their nails, they think it's more sanitary, which again is a little bit of misconception. So I've heard a variety of reasons for it, and a lot of them are not truly cat beneficial. So, but I would say definitely a little more common in more populated, densely populated areas than in a more rural setting. So,
when did the idea become to change? Because I know even when we were talking before, how throughout time there's been different opinions, different perspectives on it. What has that change kind of been like over time on just the either favor of it or not favor?
There's definitely a trend in the not in favor that I've seen. I mean, when I came through school, it was still not unusual. You know, a relatively common procedure for a lot of places. And as I was graduating, there were starting to be trends kind of leaning away from it. I would say since, and that was probably since the 90s even, you know, we hit 2000 and there's been more information as far as negative long-term effects and other options, a lot of good alternate options. And I would say definitely around 2000 there started to be a trend towards the negative, and that has kind of snowballed over the last few years as far as recommendations away from it. There are cities, counties, states that have restricted it. So there's been a huge bump in discouragement from that particular procedure.
So overview, you're seeing a kind of a downward trend.
Absolute downward trend. Yeah, there are clinics. We personally, it's not a procedure that we offer. I think there are a lot of clinics that don't. Like I said, there are states where it's not allowed. So that negative, or I guess not negative, the deterrent away from it is continuing to snowball in the leaning away from it direction pretty rapidly.
How does the procedure work?
Because,
you know, in my head I'm thinking, you know, I've always been told you're taking off the first little knuckle rather than just the claw itself. But again, that's what I've heard through the grapevine.
So kitty cat anatomy is very, very similar to ours in some ways. So their front paw, they've got 5 little digits just like we do. They have 4 toes and a dew claw. There's just 4 on the back, but it's usually the front feet we're talking about. So their paw is set up kind of like our hand. The dew claw has 2 bones. The toes have 3. So very similar to our anatomy in a sense. They have special tendons that allow the claws to retract. So this last digit is way more flexible than ours. Ours is very attached. Theirs has a much lighter attachment, so you can press on their little toe and it, pushes their claw out, but they have very specialized tendons that retract them. So a lot more movement in them, but same general anatomy. So, and I have had owners that under the misconception, well, you're just trimming their nails short, and it's so much more than that. You are, for a human comparison, you would be going in and amputating the distal or end digit on all 5 fingers. It's a little dramatic. We're getting a little graphic here, but it is a legitimate 10-finger amputation. You are cutting off that end. It is full general anesthesia. It's not a simple nail trim. It's not a simple sedation. You have to go full anesthesia. You are making an incision. You are amputating that digit. There's different ways it can be done, whether it's a scalpel or a laser. There's also, it's called the guillotine method, where it's a specialized nail trimmer where you are going in and basically just chomping down on that digit.
Oh.
They are either sutured or glued closed, and then they're bandaged for a period of time. So it is about as far away from a basic nail trim as it can get. It is legitimately a pretty aggressive surgical procedure.
Goodness.
It's
Okay.
more, yes.
So there's a lot more to it than I even realized.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So with that, because I even have a cat that I adopted.
Yeah.
Who came with declawed
Right,
front paws.
right.
And he's very old. I think you've
Yeah.
even seen him,
Yeah,
Theo.
yes.
From time to time, he still has a little bleed every now and then.
Yeah.
And it's been years.
Yeah,
Since he had
yeah.
this procedure and since I've adopted him.
Yeah.
What kind of side effects or leftover, after effects?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe if we kind of break it down into 3 little groups. So
Okay.
you have your acute, your sudden thing. So like right after surgery. I mean, obviously, oh my gosh, that has got to be uncomfortable. So very painful. When it's done, if it's done well and done properly, there's as many pain management options as you can get into it, but it's still very acutely painful. I mean, as you can imagine, cats don't like the bandage. There's swelling, there's discomfort, there's nerve pain, there's extra sensation. It affects the way they walk. It affects how they can move and jump and use the litter box. So there's a lot of sudden effects. Those can be for about a week or 2 out because the cats are like, this hurts. They chew at their incisions. They can open up that incision. And if they open up a declaw incision, the bone from this last finger is sticking right there. So that's open and exposed. You can get secondary infections. Again, if it's not done properly, there's a little tiny piece of bone that's on the underside of that digit, and if it's left behind, the effect there is, if you can imagine putting a walnut in your shoe and walking around with a walnut in your shoe, they're stepping on this little leftover piece of bone that wasn't properly removed. So we can have severe chronic pain. If a cat is too active after a declaw and they jump down onto like a hard surface, you can bruise that second bone. So you can have bone bruises. You have chronic nerve pain that can radiate all the way up their arms. It affects their normal behavior, their normal movement, their normal jumping. It can have, and cats hide a lot, so they may act relatively normal, but they can have long-term effects. I have had to repeat surgery on cats multiple years after a declaw because that little bone piece was left behind and it's starting to erode the second bone. So there can be, again, chronic nerve pain can be a big issue. People talk about phantom pain when they've had an amputation of some part.
Yes.
Same thing for cats. So there can be some very serious, immediate as well as long-term negative effects for these guys.
Okay. And I know you brought up behavior changes.
Yeah.
I want to dig a little deeper into that. So would they become more aggressive, or it's just how you deal with pain?
They can, and that's the thing, is that sometimes it's done because the owners are worried about the cats being a little more aggressive. Well, you throw chronic pain, nerve pain, sensitive nerve endings on top of it, you may end up with a cat that's actually more aggressive or more fearful, hides from their owner. It can change their entire personality, and often for the negative. So Some cats, I've seen young kittens that seem to do fine. So I'm not saying every cat is going to have a horrible experience with
Right.
it, but it is more common than not.
Okay.
So, and that those negative behavior things can kind of be lifelong, which may lead to cats getting new homes. While you were trying to alleviate one negative behavior per se or misconception, you end up with a cat with other behavior issues, like I'm not using the litter box because it hurts when I scratch.
Oh my goodness.
And then you've created a whole nother problem. So you can actually escalate some negative behaviors inadvertently.
Oh, wow. I'm just looking back at my own personal experiences with
Yeah.
Theo, who I adopted out
Yeah.
because of those exact reasons
Yeah.
that you're mentioning. And I'm thinking, he's not my old grumpy man. He's
Yeah.
just dealing with a lot of things
Yeah.
that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
Now, to kind of flip and be on the opposite side of
Okay.
this,
Okay.
are
That's
there
fair.
medically necessary reasons to get declawed?
Okay. So I will usually walk owners through every potential option, training, behavior, working with the owner. I will say a lot of cat behavior issues have an owner component, so we have to work with the owners. We have to train the owners. There are a lot of things we can do from a environmental standpoint, an enrichment standpoint, a stress relief standpoint. There are feline pheromones that can help. There are supplements that can help. And in all honesty, I've had cats that are just very stressed. We've put them actually on some medications to help reduce stress, and that takes away the negative scratching behavior. I kind of got off topic a little bit. Anyway, so as far as pros, so if you look at all of the things that we have tried, there are instances where we have a family member with some health issues that is incredibly susceptible to the smallest little insult, but they don't want to get rid of the cat. So there are a few instances there where it may be necessary. We may have a situation where we have severely aggressive cats, and I've had owners look at that as an option. So in the past, I have done that. Other than that, there's not a lot of medical reasons for it. Usually if we have to do an amputation of a digit, it's because of severe infection or, they get a little bone tumor, and we have to do a declaw for that. But there's few and far pros or medical reasons for actually doing it anymore.
Okay.
There's a few.
Okay. So what would be some healthy alternatives?
So again, environmental enrichment is a big thing with cats. So they have a just innate natural instinct to climb and scratch and
Yes.
hide and play. And if you try to stop all of that, the cat is going to be more physically and mentally stressed. So places to climb, places to hide, and all cats have their different personalities. They need stuff to do. Some cats like scratching vertical surfaces, some like horizontal, things they can chase, things they can grab at. You may have to look at like a window seat where they can sit and look out. If there's a safe place for the cat to go outside, a few minutes outside a day can provide enough enrichment to kind of help them out with that. Aside from that, trimming their nails as much as you can, getting them used to that can help a little bit. There are little soft paws
Yes,
that
the
glue
little-
on.
yes.
Yep. So if you trim their nails really short and then put the little soft paw on,
Yes.
some cats do well with that. Sometimes you just have to get them through their teenage years because it might be worse as a kitten. And once you get to be an adult, that kind of backs off a little bit. So it may be some training things, some soft paws. There's a feline pheromone called Feel Away that kind of calms the kitty. And sometimes that can help a little bit. So there's some alternate ways to try to discourage that. I've had people do aluminum foil if they're scratching at a chair.
Yes.
Put aluminum foil on it. Put double-sided sticky tape on it. If the cats are jumping on something like a couch cushion to scratch at, you've seen the clear plastic runners, the mats with the little pokey things?
Yes.
Put that on there upside down.
Oh,
Cat will
wow.
only jump on it once.
Like, no.
Oh, no, that hurts. I'm not jumping on that. So there are physical ways to kind of deter them from scratching on things you don't want them to. So
If someone is in a similar position like I have found myself,
Yeah.
because I've had Theo for years now,
Yeah.
and again, he still sometimes has issues with,
Yeah.
I call him his pity pats, because
Yeah.
he's pitiful trying to swat at people.
Yeah.
How do you help keep them comfortable if you've adopted a cat who has been declawed?
Okay. Is one thing you can look at first is sometimes if it's one paw in particular, it may be that there's that little bone pebble left. So sometimes we can x-ray and see it. We don't always, but I have had big enough pebbles left behind that I've had to remove it. So sometimes x-raying the feet to make sure there's nothing mechanical there. Other than that, there are medications that can help alleviate nerve pain, and sometimes that can work really, really well. Sometimes they've developed arthritis in their feet, and so there are joint supplements or anti-inflammatory meds that can help alleviate some of the discomfort from arthritis. And then a medication called gabapentin can help with some of the nerve pain. So there are supplements, meds, options that can help with that. Other than that, keeping them at a really healthy weight is good because less weight coming down on the front feet.
Right.
Having a litter that is very soft and easy on their feet can help a little bit as well.
We use Nature Way, I think. It's something like that. It's ground up pecan shells or walnut shells. And that's been very helpful for us.
Very soft and fluffy. That helps them a lot too. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to think of what else I can ask you because I know Theo is a big fan of just laying out on the back porch where it's hot on the warm concrete because the sun's been. And so I always thought it was just him kind of, warming up his bones because he's an old man. So that can help?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that we haven't touched base on that you want us to hit home on this topic?
A couple things. One thing, and this was interesting because I talked to the other two doctors. One of them graduated 3 years ago and one of them graduated a year ago. It's like, do they even teach this anymore?
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
No?
It is not even taught anymore. The trend for discouraging it has come to the point where vet schools don't even teach it anymore.
Wow.
So it's becoming harder and harder to find a place that will do it, and again, do it well if it has to be done.
And it's hard to do it well if you've never been taught.
Yes. So they're not even teaching it anymore. It's come under that much scrutiny. So that's interesting because neither one of them were taught to do it. So, but the other thing I want to mention to owners is always look for alternates on how to correct a behavior versus something that is dramatic and permanent and potentially have long-term negative effects. Plus, if you have the indoor cat that gets out, they don't have defenses. And that can put them at a huge disadvantage for getting hurt. And lastly, if you've got a cat, most people like to think that they're going to have their pet for its whole life. But that, as we know, doesn't always happen. There's lots and lots of rehoming and things like that. And so doing something so permanent for a cat that potentially may end up in a different situation where it's put outside or something like that is just not best for the kitty. So, come and chat with us. You can call us. We can go over things. Anybody that has any basic questions, any of the vets are happy to chat with you and just see. You may have to put in a little time, a little work trying to, help the cat with whatever the issue is, but we can find a way.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dr. Tammy Wilson with the Flint Veterinary Clinic. Make sure you reach out. And, of course, you can always email us any kind of topics you want to see us discuss in the future. news@kltv or kterry.com, or let us know in our East Texas Now group chat. Thank you, Dr. Tammy.
You're very welcome.
I'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.